What's up, Hokie Nation, and welcome into this very special TSL basketball video. Virginia Tech men's basketball is 5-0. The women head down to the U.S. Virgin Islands, and there was so much to break down here on Tech Sideline. Let's get it rolling here on this TSL very special basketball video. And we record on Tuesday, November 25th, 2025 from the Tech Solutions studio in the Virginia Tech Corporate Research Center. Remember to like, subscribe, and refer the show to a friend. I'm your host, Carter Hill. To my left is our lead analyst and columnist, Chris Coleman. Across the way is our managing editor, David Cunningham. Nick Brown, our director of media, is producing behind the scenes. And we are so thrilled you could join us on your Tuesday afternoon. Guys, how are you? This feels like old times talking about basketball, but the most refreshing part to this is there is some excitement around Virginia Tech basketball. Hokies are 5-0 on the men's side, and going to be a lot of fun to talk about this.
Yeah, I mean, I think last year we didn't do many of these because the team wasn't very good. Neither team, I mean, the women were all right, but the men haven't been very good. There's a lot of excitement around the men this year. They've got a couple big time games coming up this week in the Bahamas. I'm very excited to just kind of see what they're made of. I feel like these kind of tournaments are where Mike Young always gets the best out of his team. And if you look at whether it's postseason tournaments in terms of conference tournaments, like Mike Young was always really good in the SoCon tournament. He's obviously won an ACC tournament. He usually gets the most out of his teams in tournaments. And you look at this, there are some pretty good teams. There are some not so great teams. Hokies are going to have their hands full, though, with some of these different styles they're going to play. And this is a big 5-game stretch upcoming for them. I'm excited to see how they kind of handle everything. And, they've done all right so far. They beat a really good Providence team, but they've had some up and down results outside of that. You can't slip up. These are games you need as far as the net rankings go at the end of the season.
Yeah, and, it's a different type of game in that 4 of the first 5 were in Castle Coliseum. Now you've got 3 games in 3 days on a neutral court. We don't know for sure who Virginia Tech's going to play on the second day or the third day, so they're going to be quick turnaround games. So you got to get your scouting report out really quick. You got to understand the scouting report really quickly. And there's probably at least 2 NCAA tournament teams in this field, 2 or 3 probably. So it's a great challenge. It's Virginia Tech has a chance to win this tournament, but there's probably 3 teams I think that could potentially win it.
We'll get to the battle for Atlantis in a minute, but Chris, I'm just kind of curious to get your thoughts as we dive into the season so far. What are kind of your overall thoughts on how the Hokies have looked so far this year? I know not a lot of stiff competition. You had the Providence game, but what are your thoughts overall as to how Mike Young's team looks?
Yeah, good for the most part. I thought they played their best ball the first 3 games. Weren't quite as good the last 2. I think they got some different looks, and that's normal. After the first 3 games or so, all the personnel's different, right? So nobody really knows how to guard you the first 3 games. Then you put something out there on tape and they figure it out. And then you have to adjust to the adjustments. It's almost like a rookie baseball player who comes up and he's hot for like the first 10 days and then starts getting more off speed stuff. And then, he can't handle it. He has to adjust to that. So, they're guarding Abdallas a little bit differently, obviously, after that Providence game that he had. And the whole offense has to adjust to that, and that'll be an ongoing process throughout the season, I think.
Yeah, well, and they've had some, like Amani Hansberry missed the last game due to a minor thing. Mike Young said he's going to be back. He's going to be completely healthy for this week, but they just wanted to hold him out. So as a result, they were down to their second and third options at the 5 last week, and Antonio Dorn got 2 flagrants and was ejected. Yeah. So Christian Gerdak had to come in and play. And I think you saw the best of Christian Gerdak, but at the same time, that's not something you necessarily prepare for. I think stylistically, some of these teams, you look at the schedule, Charlotte and Bryant both played Tech very, very slow, very, very methodical. And I think this is a little bit different from Mike Young's teams in the past. They want to play a little bit faster. You've got a point guard in Neoklis of Dallas who wants to play fast. He wants to play more up-tempo. You got the horses to get out and run, and you saw that against St. Joe's. I mean, they won by 35. They got out and blew the doors off. But that's not going to happen every game. I'm curious to see how this team progresses in the half court. I think you'll see a lot of it this week. And the biggest thing is they're playing fine defense for the most part. They are rebounding the basketball pretty well, and they are not turning the ball over. They are 4th in turnover rate. After last year's team being the worst in Mike Young's career at turnovers, he didn't have much heartburn about that this year.
Yeah, I know you wouldn't realize it just from looking at the score of the Providence game, but this is a team that is more likely to grind out a win this year than some teams in the past, simply because they are better at rebounding. They're quite a bit better defensively than last year, although there's still work to be done there. And they're much improved as far as turnovers go. I really hate to jinx them, but I believe it was the second half of the Providence game plus overtime when they only had 2 turnovers.
Yeah.
And that's the reason they won that game.
David, it's so refreshing to see because as we talked about so many times last year, Mike Young got the most out of that group, but he's been, and you've probably seen this too, Chris, he's been so transparent in the post games this year. People are asking, like, what's the difference between this year and last year in a lot of different categories? And his answer every single time is better players. And that's the truth of the matter. Obviously, Neokilis of Dallas gets a lot of the attention, and everybody likes the way he can score the basketball. But to me, what makes him such a good player in the ACC is the way he dishes off the basketball. Like, I remember the Charleston Southern game. Do you remember, you were at that game, obviously you were covering it, David. Do you remember like the 75-foot pass from the backcourt to, I think it was Monty Hansberry around the rim, up and under layup? That's what makes him so good, in my opinion. And if Virginia Tech, to your point, can continue with him at the very, very top, and really a lot of different positions too, Hokies are going to be in a good position to avoid turning the basketball over, and again, kind of make that offense work to the way that it probably should be.
Yeah, I think he's still putting a little bit too much pressure on himself as far as scoring goes. Like, I think he's trying to force it a little bit too much. But his distribution has been there. He hasn't really turned the ball over much at all. Now, Charlotte, I thought, did a really good job of blitzing him as far as the ball screens go and kind of got him out of rhythm a little bit. I'm interested to see how, when he gets more games under his belt, how he goes about that. And there have been a little bit too many possessions, like that Bryant game, where it felt like some of the Hokies were just standing around watching Dallas dribble and try to come up with something. Maybe he's forcing a little bit too much, but his distribution's been very, very good. He's been very impressive, and he just provides such a unique threat. And I think what it's allowed everybody else around the floor to do is play a little bit more relaxed, where like a Toby Lowell or a Jaden Shoot, guys who kind of had to do everything last year at certain times, like they had a lot of pressure on them because the team wasn't very good. It's allowed them to relax a little bit more and just kind of play their game. I think you've seen Toby Lowell play pretty well, but I don't even think that's the best version of him so far. You've seen Jaden Shoot be a guy who plays good defense, rebounds the basketball, and just comes off of pin downs and catches and shoots threes, and he's making like 50% this year. So I think he has opened things up and allowed some of these guys to play some of their better basketball.
Yeah, and I think a guy like Hansberry, I know he didn't play in the last game, but just having a 5-man outside the three-point line that can pass and shoot from out there just opens up a lot of things for this offense that they didn't have last year. He's just a very, very skilled player. He's in a power forward's body, but he's playing the center position. So Tech has to do some things differently because you can't defend the post with just him. You got to double the post when he's in the game defensively, but offensively, I think he just opens everything up. And Abdallas is going to play in the NBA and Hansberry's not, but Virginia Tech could replace Abdallas on the aggregate to a certain extent, but there is nobody else on this team that can do what Hansberry can do. Not even close.
For what Mike Young wants to do.
Right. Yeah. Well, and to your point, so you brought this up, David, and I'm curious to get your thoughts on this too, Chris, but Virginia Tech essentially has 7 starters on this team. Mm-hmm. And when you look at the different roles guys can play, it can lend itself more to their strengths, whereas to your point, you just said it, Jaden Shoot doesn't have to be the guy to knock down a 3, but he can give you 20 to 25 minutes off the bench, and he plays like a starter. Ben Hammond, I think over the summer, we sat on the foundation of the new set in the middle of June talking about Abdallas' commitment, and we were talking about Ben Hammond. But really, actually, we were talking about Isaiah Pasha. He was somebody that I think a lot of people thought was going to play a little bit more of a role coming into the season. Still seems like he's trying to get adjusted to this level. But when you watch Ben Hammond play, he is much improved this year. And when he can give you 20 to 25 minutes off the bench at the top of the key, that's another really big boost for this Virginia Tech team.
Yeah, it really is. I would say last year, so you have to have 5 starters, right? And last year they probably had 2.
Probably.
And this year they've got 7. So when Mike Young talks about better players this year, he's, yes, better players, but also more players, just better depth. And that should hopefully suit them a little bit in tournament basketball. Now, you can't have your centers getting ejected from games like that. But that probably won't happen again for the rest of the year. But yeah, I think Hammond is definitely improved. I think he's very good on the open court, just like pretty much all of Tech's players are good in the open court. Now, the issue now is getting it into the open court more often. I saw some comments on the board about, oh, Mike Young's slowing him down against Charlotte and Bryant. No, other teams are just looking at film and saying, well, we have to get back on defense.
Yeah.
Right? We better not crash the boards against these dudes, or they're going to beat us back up the court if we don't get the offensive rebound. Right? So you're seeing more and more of that. So as this season goes along, this team is going to have to learn to function a little bit better in the half court than it has. And that should come with time as they get used to the system.
It's funny because that's where Mike Young, I think, is at his best, is designing these half court sets. But so far, when you've got a European import in Dallas, I think Jalen Bedford, who we have not mentioned yet, has come in and assimilated really, really well. He's playing very good basketball for the Hokies. Tyler Johnson looks really good. Mike Young's called him a glue guy. Toby Lawal's been good. Monty Hansberry's been good. I mean, those 5 plus Hammond plus shoot makes a good 7. The tricky part is if like Tech can't rely too much on Dallas as far as scoring goes. And I think you have seen it okay so far. Dallas had 33 in that Providence game. But I'm curious, like these next 3 games in Atlantis are going to be a huge test as far as the Hokies are going to have to be a little bit more well-rounded at scoring the basketball against better competition. Like I don't know that you're necessarily going to get 16 points from Christian Gerdak, right? Maybe not against St. Mary's or Colorado State as you did against Bryant. But I think this team continues to evolve, and they're very comfortable playing up tempo, which is not something that Mike Young teams usually are good at doing. It's funny because it's taken them a little bit of time to come along in the half court. But as Mike Young says, if that's his biggest problem so far, that's pretty good. I think they are farther ahead defensively and rebounding the ball than they are in half court offense, which is, I don't think anybody really thought you would be saying, but I think teams have just played them so many different ways, in part because of Neo. Teams have played them, done different things defensively, and it's taken them a little bit to figure out, how do we attack this the best? And maybe they haven't necessarily hit as many shots as they have needed to.
I was going to say, can you go ahead, Chris?
I was going to believe Mike Young's exact quote was, if his biggest concern is offense, then he can go home and have a cold drink.
Yes, that's exactly what he said.
And have a good night's sleep. Anyway, go ahead.
No, can you guys remember a time where Mike Young had a team that could play this fast? I mean,
he's never had.
Not
never
even close,
in
right?
his career. He's never had a team that has been played this fast in his career. I mean, the Hokies are top 150 in tempo. Mike Young's never had a team play this fast, and that's what happens when you've got a future NBA player in Dallas, and you've got guys like Lawal, Hansberry, Hammond, guys who just love playing fast in general. Bedford. I don't know that Mike Young necessarily planned for this. You know, it's funny. I think, I don't know that this team is necessarily more athletic than some of the other ones in the past, but I think some of the individual styles just are better acclimated to playing up tempo. Like Storm Murphy was not necessarily a guy who wanted to get up and play fast. His style was more structured for the half court. Justin Mutz, I think, could play fast, but he didn't necessarily need to.
Right.
This team's style is more get out and go. And it's interesting because Colorado State and St. Mary's, potentially Tech's first 2 opponents down here, they're much more slower pace. So this will be 2 big tests as far as the Hokies playing in the half court and kind of getting up to speed in that regard. And the biggest thing, as Mike Young talked about after those Charlotte and Bryant games, is the ball has to keep moving. Like, too many times the ball just gets stuck, and you got to keep it moving, because if they do that, I think this will be a pretty efficient offense, and it'll just come with time.
And we'll get to the Atlantis tournament in just a minute, but before we move on, you alluded to this, Chris. What do you think about Virginia Tech's bigs, particularly off the bench? 2 younger guys. Antonio Dorn is, I guess he's technically listed as a sophomore.
Well, he's 22.
He's 22. Right. So you have Antonio Dorn, and then you also have Christian Gerdak, who did he even play in the Providence game? And then he dropped 16 against Bryant.
Well, I think he got in there early against Providence and scored 2 points.
Yeah, okay. He did not play in that
Charlotte.
third game.
Charlotte, yes. That's the game he didn't play.
He didn't play St. Joe's. I don't know.
There was a game he didn't play, and then he scored 16 points off the bench. Yeah. So what do you think about their young bigs as a whole? Young-ish bigs as a whole.
I think Dorn I think they're both unique. I think Dorn is a guy, he's a big-bodied guy. You don't have to double the post with Dorn in there. So you can play defense a little bit differently. Gerdak is, again, he's not the tallest guy in the world, and he doesn't play above the rim. So you probably have to double the post with him in there. So with two of Virginia Tech's three centers, you have to double the post, and with one of them, you don't. But I do think Gerdak is very skilled, much more skilled than Dorn on the offensive end. I think that's very obvious by now. As far as what they can do outside the three-point line, there's only one guy right now that can do that. Now, I think Gerdak probably at some point could add that to his game as he continues to develop as a player, but it's not there right now. So they're all just very different players, and Virginia Tech is going to look like a slightly different team whenever each one of those guys is in the game.
And what we haven't seen a ton of is Toby Lau at the 5.
Right.
We've seen a little bit, but that is obviously you would be playing much, much smaller basketball. But I was impressed with Christian Gerdak in the last game. He came in and gave the Hokies a lift. Physically, he looks the part, which you can't always say with incoming freshman bigs.
Right.
I think most of the time Virginia Tech fans will go, freshman center, he's not going to help us until year 3. And Christian Gerdak has come in and hit the ground running. And, Mike Young said he's going to play a big role going forward. He can be one of the first, maybe the first big off the bench. He was not happy with Dorn, to say the least, after those 2 flagrants, but he was pleased with Gerdak. And I think you got to think about where Gerdak came from. He played at Gonzaga High School in D.C., and before that he played at Paul VI. Mm-hmm. So same kind of place as Ben Hammond. Hammond played at Paul VI too. And when you play that high caliber of high school basketball, I think it's easier for them to adapt to the pace. Maybe even similar to a DeMatha high school football player.
I would agree with that.
Where you adapt to the pace of play quicker. It's easier. You're not as, oh my gosh, like your eyes don't get as big. Gerdak's a very smart player. When we talked to him after the game against Bryant, he talked about one of the things I always relied on in high school was I thought I was one of the smartest players on the floor, and I saw things differently, and especially like when we scouted another team, it was very easy for me to pick up a scout. And he said, I get to Virginia Tech and I think I'm a pretty smart player, and then we're talking about stuff I've never even thought of before. And he's like, my IQ like just grows every day. And I think he's a guy who you got to keep him around for a couple years because he can be a really, really good Virginia Tech basketball player in the future.
All right, so the battle for Atlantis. Hokies are going to draw Colorado State Wednesday at 5 p.m. Virginia Tech versus Brandon Reckstein. They're in the Colorado State Rams at Atlantis. Have you guys ever been to Atlantis, by the way?
No.
That place is awesome.
Have you been?
Yeah, I've been a couple times. Yeah, down in Nassau, the Bahamas. So they draw Colorado State. You're going to see Nick's got the graphic up here. They're on the side of the bracket with Wichita State and St. Mary's. They'll draw either the winner or the loser, depending on if the Hokies win or lose, on Thursday, Thanksgiving, either at 2:30 or at 8 p.m. And then on the other side of the bracket, you got Western Kentucky, Tyler Nickel, and the Vanderbilt Commodores, and then VCU, Toby Lawal's former stopping grounds, and South Florida. How do you guys view the battle for Atlantis as a whole, and what do you kind of like about this matchup or not for Virginia Tech?
I think St. Mary's is a really, really good team. I think Vanderbilt's a really, really good team. I think Virginia Tech certainly has a chance to be a really, really good team. I think Colorado State can be a good team if they play defense, which they haven't really done so far. So I think there's 3 teams in this field with a chance to win it, and Virginia Tech is one of them.
Yeah, I think VCU is pretty good, but still a little bit hit or miss. Phil Martelli Jr. just took over for Ryan Odom, who of course is now at Virginia. I think Vanderbilt and St. Mary's are kind of head and shoulders above everybody else, but Virginia Tech is probably right there. And I think this is a great opportunity for the pieces to kind of come together for Virginia Tech. I think this is a high IQ group. And I think, again, Mike Young gets the most out of his teams on quick turnarounds. Historically, the Hokies have been very good in a tournament like this. I think back to the Charleston Classic a couple years ago where they played an NCAA tournament team. They played Old Dominion the first game and an NCAA tournament team in Penn State the next day and played really good defense against Penn State and grinded it out. This is the type of tournament where you have to be able to do that. You have to have depth. You have to have legs. I think Virginia Tech has the talent, but maybe the Hokies haven't necessarily had all the pieces clicking yet. But if they get St. Mary's, that's going to be a great matchup. This is a Gales team led by Randy Bennett, who's been there for forever. they have been top 20 in adjusted defense each like the last 5 or 6 seasons. Really, really good defensive team. And Vanderbilt, one of the best offenses in the country this year. So you got some really, really good teams, maybe some not so good ones down here. But I think the Hokies are among the better ones. They get to go prove it this week.
What would be a good week for Virginia Tech?
2-1.
2-1?
Yeah, I think anything less than that would be disappointing.
Okay.
It means they would probably get upset in one of their games.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah, I think 2-1.
Or maybe even 2 of them. Like if they lost to Colorado State and then lost in the losers bracket somewhere else, it would probably mean 2 upsets.
Yeah.
So, 2-1.
Well, you got anything else?
No.
Well, it's an interesting it's an interesting week because you got the Bahamas tournament. First off, on a side note, it's nice to see Virginia Tech, though the Vegas tournament has consumed a lot of the high profile programs. It's nice to see Virginia Tech in a big time Thanksgiving tournament again. I don't think we've seen them in one since Maui when they beat Michigan State in Mike Young's first
year. It depends on how you value the ESPN
Charleston
events.
Classic, maybe.
Well, the ESPN events tournament they played
Sure,
2 years ago, which I mean, Texas A&M was down there, like Buzz was down there.
VCU, Ryan Odom at
VCU
the
was
time
down there. Yeah, I mean, Hokies played in the final and lost to a Florida Atlantic team that was coming off a Final Four appearance. That was before Dusty May left. But again, that Virginia Tech team that year, 2 years ago, beat Iowa State and Boise State.
That's right, they did.
2
That's a
NCAA
good
tournament
point.
teams.
That's a good point.
Like, I mean, I don't. When you talk about high profile, the Battle for Atlantis is one of the more high profile ones, along with the Maui Invitational. Virginia Tech hasn't necessarily played in one of the high profile ones. They played in good ones. But that's what I'm talking about when I say Mike Young, like he gets his guys to play. Like I will never forget those like back-to-back days. The Hokies beat Boise State and Iowa State in Battle for Atlantis or in Orlando in ESPN events, and it's just like, man, this team's really, really good. They couldn't put it together in ACC play, but sometimes they just show up their best because of the way they scout and the way they approach. And remember, the entire assistant coaching staff is new. Or sorry, 2/3, I guess. JD Byers is back, but
right, and Frazier's kind of new.
Frazier's kind of new.
Yeah.
But just like how they go into this, usually you split up the scouting report where 2 people per scout. So like the way the Hokies do it. So like somebody will have the Colorado State scout, and then you'll have 1 person scout Wichita State, 1 person scout St. Mary's, and then you'll wrap back around before the third game and figure out, pair up and somebody scouts those 2 teams that you could potentially end up playing. So just the way you approach it, you have to be very detail oriented and you have to know how to kind of shrink the information, make it easy to compartmentalize for the players. Like, hey, you're coming off of a game, emotions are high most of the time. You got to figure out how to say, hey, here's what you got to know in a couple hours. You got to turn around and go play a really good team the next day.
It's a very interesting week with the Battle for Atlantis tournament and then going to South Carolina next Tuesday.
Yeah.
That is a game Virginia Tech, and we'll get to that a little bit next week, but that's a game Virginia Tech should win. So, you talk about 2-1 would probably be a quote unquote good week. This is a kind of an elementary level question, but I'm curious to get you guys' thoughts. We're 3 weeks into the season and it's very, very early. But as of right now, do you view Virginia Tech as an NCAA tournament team?
Probably.
Okay.
I mean, I've watched enough college basketball in my life now that I don't get too high or too low early in the season. Because, like David said, it was just a few years ago when Virginia Tech beat back-to-back NCAA tournament teams early in the season like this. And you're like, wow, Virginia Tech is back. We're going to go back to the NCAA tournament this year. As it turned out, that just wasn't a good defensive team, as FAU proved the very next day. Yeah. Right? If you remember that game.
Yeah. And Auburn later that week.
Yeah, and Auburn the very next week.
That's right. Forgot about that one. So, I mean, it's just – and I remember also back like when Seth Greenberg was the coach and Tech played in one of these tournaments, and they lost like 2 games in the tournament. They lost to Western Michigan and I think somebody else.
Southern Illinois, maybe?
So, yeah, I think it was
That was the year they went to the tournament.
And they also lost to Southern Illinois in the tournament. But they lost to Western Michigan and Southern Illinois back-to-back, and Western Michigan wasn't even that good of a team. And you're like, wow, we're really struggling. This team's supposed to be better. And then sure enough, they beat Carolina and Duke, and they are better. But like, especially with a Mike Young team with a bunch of new faces on it, like the offense is going to be, the half-court offense is going to be a work in progress throughout the entire season. You can't because you can't rely on Dallas making insane shots all year like he did against Providence. Number one, he's not as good a shooter as he showed in that game. And number two, you just can't rely on that for 30-plus games over an entire season. So what I want to see right now, more than wins and losses, is just progress within the running of the X's and O's on the offensive end of the court.
That the offense continues to evolve.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think they're playing like an NCAA tournament team right now, but I mean, I don't think it's been anything crazy. Like, they've just been good, solid. I mean, you'll find out, I think, this next week. These 3 games, go to South Carolina to potentially get revenge for last year's game.
The last 2 years, too.
Fort Myers, last 2 years. And then they got George Mason at home next week. I mean, that's a pretty big 5-game series. You've got to turn the page very quickly.
If you can go 3-1 in these next 4 games, then you've got a chance to go, 12-1 in non-conference play.
Yeah,
could be. That would be great.
Could be. All right, let's step aside and hear from one of our presenting sponsors here on TechSideline.com.
This Tech Sideline video comes to you from the Tech Solutions studio. Tech Solutions, located in Arlington, Virginia, provides specialized CETA engineering and financial advisory services to the Department of Defense and Intelligence community. Based on the philosophy of only hiring the best of the best, we pride ourselves on being customer and mission focused. A Washington Post top workplace winner in 2024 and 2025, we're always looking for talented and motivated individuals to join our team. Visit techsolutionsva.com/careers to learn more. That is techsolutionsva.com/careers.
All right, welcome back to this TSL basketball video. Let's keep talking about Battle for Atlantis. Colorado State once again on Wednesday. Hokies are facing off against Brandon Rechsteiner and a team that does not return a lot from last year, but was a tipping away from going to the Sweet 16. Now, they lost a lot of their team and coaching staff to Minnesota, but I think there's still a lot to like there. And can you kind of just break down the Rams for a second, Mr. Cunningham, if you have a second?
If you guys remember Ali Farouk-Manesh, who hit the game-winning shot for Northern Iowa way back when against Kansas in the NCAA tournament, he's the head coach at Colorado State now, so it's kind of crazy. He's got a pretty good team. They are very, very good offensively so far. Like one of the best in the country. Like we're talking like top 20 in a bunch of offensive categories, first in free throw percentage, top 5 in 3-point percentage. Very, very, very efficient offense. But they have played nobody defensively. 4 of the 5 teams they played have been sub 310 in adjusted defense. So this is a group, 4 of the 5 starters are new. The big one is Jorgensen. He was a freshman last year, part of that NCAA tournament team, kind of was a rotational player, and he's come in and he's averaging like 17, 18. He had 29 the other night against Denver, but they lost to Denver. They gave up 83 points to a Denver team that's like 280 in Ken Palm. So again, I'm interested to know, what does this Colorado State defense look like? Brandon Rechsteiner's played okay for them, but again, I think this is a good system for him, considering they play kind of slow. He's got some options to distribute the ball. He's shooting 50% from 3 to open the season, like 15 for 30, which is pretty good. They're all shooting very well right now, but they haven't played any good defenses. So it's kind of one of these things where it's like Hokies are going to be their first real defensive test they've faced, and I'm curious to see how they kind of handle it from that perspective.
To keep things very, very simple, I mean, I feel like this is a game Tech should win because Colorado State's defense has been bad thus far. Yeah. And Virginia Tech should have a better scouting report than any team on the country on Brandon Rechsteiner.
That's a good point.
Right?
Yes.
And I think he'll struggle. At various points in this game, he's going to have to guard Jalen Bedford, Dallas, maybe even like Tyler Johnson on a switch or something like that. So, and I think that's something they can exploit.
He's a bit undersized. We knew that. He's 6'1", 6'2". I can't imagine if he's bringing the ball up that they're going to have Rechsteiner on of Dallas. That's probably not a good matchup for him. Maybe
he's going to be on Bedford?
Maybe he guards Bedford. Right. And you're talking about Bedford being a 5th-year senior, or he's on Tyler Johnson. I just
I can't imagine him being on Johnson unless it's a switch.
Yeah,
you get caught in it.
So I think his size, a little bit of a mismatch. But this is a pretty big team as far as the rest of the roster goes, and they've got some really good players. Kerry Booth is really good. Jorgensen, as I mentioned, a lot of really good transfers. They're shooting the ball very well, but they have not played good defense. They're like 250 something in adjusted defense. So how does Colorado State's defense look? I'm not really sure. I think the Hokies should win this one. I mean, Brandon Rexsteiner, he's 2 for 1 assisted turnovers, 14-7 so far.
Ooh.
But they haven't played a good defense. And so I'm like, if you, what you talk about, Chris, going in with a good scouting report, Hokies know him better than anyone. Do you remember last year's game? Hokies didn't win many games last year. You remember how much they disrupted Lynn Kidd? Because Mike Young said the one thing he hates more than anything is being doubled. So all they did is double team Lynn Kidd the entire game. I imagine a similar approach as far as we know exactly what Brandon Rexsteiner doesn't like. Maybe you see Hokies pull out some bag of tricks and just be a little bit more disruptive than usual to Brandon Rexsteiner, a guy who doesn't really like playing against pressure.
So as you guys know, these Thanksgiving tournaments, a little bit of a crapshoot in terms of who you could play, but St. Mary's is a likely one. So how does Virginia Tech match up against them? And that's a big game for them because their league is not very good. They have Gonzaga in their league for one more year, but their league is not very good. So if they can knock off an ACC foe, that's big for their NCAA tournament hopes as well.
Randy Menon has been there for a really long time, and he's very good. He's an excellent coach. And St. Mary's is very, very balanced, better defensively than offensively. If Virginia Tech and St. Mary's play, like that'll be like must-watch TV. It would be on ESPN at 2:30 on Thanksgiving.
Right during my family's Thanksgiving. Yeah. I wouldn't be able to get to watch. Kills me every year.
Yeah. But that would be must-watch basketball. I mean, that would be two really, really, really good basketball coaches going at it. St. Mary's doesn't necessarily do anything flashy, just good, hard-nosed team. They're really good defensively. This is a team that is a perennial NCAA tournament team. They've made it each of the last 4 seasons. That is about as good of a matchup, as good of a test as you could ask for the Hokies. And if you could beat St. Mary's on a neutral floor, that is a huge resume boost.
So, David, I'm curious to get your thoughts as we transition to the women. Hokies are 5-1. Their non-conference schedule is pretty light up to this point. They haven't really beaten anybody at home. You then go on the road for the first time on Sunday, and you lose to James Madison 65-56. JMU's been a good program the last couple of years. And trust me, as you guys well know, there's a lot of similarities between Virginia Tech and James Madison the last 10 years and a lot of crossover. Not as much anymore with Mr. Brooks in Lexington, but there has been a lot of crossover. You go to James Madison, and though they've been a good program, you do lose that game. It is early for Virginia Tech, but I'm just curious to get your overall thoughts on the women at this time of the year.
I'm a little skeptical right now, more so because that was the first quality team they played, and they were just very inconsistent. They showed positive signs for a little bit early, a little bit late. They were down 11, came back to lead, and then they blew the game. And it wasn't anything complicated. They just, JMU hit 2 shots. Hokies missed a bunch of shots, turned the ball over, weren't efficient in late game situations, and then JMU ran up the score late because they hit a bunch of free throws. It was a much closer game than it appeared. But the biggest thing for me is that Virginia Tech's defense has been okay, and the Hokies haven't hit a lot of shots. Like, this is a team last year that was one of the best 3-point shooting. They lost Matilda Eck, yes, and they haven't really gotten Sophie Swanson, the like-for-like replacement as far as Eck goes, the 3-point shooter from Purdue. Haven't really got her going. She's been a little bit hurt, and she's playing with a mask on, which I can imagine doesn't help things. But even still, this is mostly the same team from last year, and they're not shooting it as well at all. And I worry about that. They had a lot of open looks in that JMU game, as they have in the last couple games. They just have not necessarily hit shots. If they're not hitting shots, that is worrisome. That's very simple. Right? That is, you got to score to win basketball games. They have generated pretty good looks. And I think back to that JMU game, you're playing in transition, you're getting up and running, and the Hokies want to do that more this year. And there are a couple situations in that game where they made an extra pass to a wide open player, like a Karis Baker in transition, and she missed a 3. Those are shots you have to hit. And we haven't seen them this year. That doesn't mean it's not going to happen. But this is a big couple game stretch for them. You know, they got out rebounded by 20 at JMU. Defensively, they just got beat really easy in pick and roll. and a lot of second chance opportunities, gave up 21 second chance points.
Yeah, I think just a few points I want to make is, first of all, JMU's done a great job replacing Kenny Brooks.
Yeah.
I think just a fantastic job the way they run their athletic department. Second off, you're going to be an undersized team like Virginia Tech. You should probably be a good shooting team, which they will shoot it better.
Yeah.
But when you're undersized like that, you've got to have a couple of dogs out there, right? Like, to borrow a couple players from like the men's game, you got to have a Justin Mutz and a Tyrese Radford out there, right? Guys that are a little bit undersized, but they are tough as heck, and they will fight you. Or a Jamon Gordon who can get 16 rebounds in one game as a guard. But they don't really have anything like that. So that's a little bit of a concern. And the other concern for me is, I think Carly Wenzel's a good player, but if your goal is to make the NCAA tournament as an ACC team, she probably needs to be your second or third best player, not your best player.
Yeah, I mean, I think they just haven't. I'm not like completely. I think they've still got a lot of potential, and I don't want to overreact off just one game. But the way they played undersized, I was just surprised. Like, I'm interested to see they're playing another big BYU team on Thursday. They will have to rebound the ball well. And I think Kyla Freeland's done a pretty good job, but she's one player. I mean, she's a transfer from Texas Tech on the inside, and she's a little bit undersized at 6'2". They have to be better rebounding the ball as a collective, and it has to come from the guards. And something you saw time and time again in that JMU game was they contested the first shot very well, and then they just got beat to the glass on the second chance effort. Easy layup, easy putback. You can't do that, especially when you are as undersized as they are. Their defense has been all right. This will be a big 2 games down in the U.S. Virgin Islands, quick turnaround. If they get Vanderbilt in that game on Saturday, that will be a huge test. Vanderbilt has one of the best backcourts in the country. Oregon State would be a little bit of an easier game, but they have to turn things around and get a little bit of momentum, because next week is crucial too. They've got Florida in the SEC Challenge at home, and then they've got Duke to open
Who's
ACC
not played
play.
well to start the year, I will say that.
Correct.
Lost to South Florida, which is interesting, about a week and a half ago.
These are, with the exception of Vanderbilt if they play the Commodores, these are all winnable games.
Yeah.
And even Vanderbilt could be, I would doubt it, but it's still, right? Vanderbilt's a very good team, but the other 3 games, they're winnable. But you have to come out and just be balanced. And you've seen them play really, really good defense at times. You've seen them play really, really good offense at times, but it just has not been there all at the same time. And I think Megan Duffy's still figuring out, like last game, who does she want on the floor in a late game situation? I think talking to her after that JMU game, she maybe wouldn't have put Layla Wells out on the floor with a couple minutes to go, because there was some miscommunication with a minute and a half to go out of a timeout. You got to get a good shot off. Hokies had a shot clock violation. Just little things that if you clean those up, it's a completely different ball game.
I think to your point about the Jamon Gordon, Justin Mutz point, they're hopeful that Kyla Freeland can be that type of player. Gonna have to give it some time. They have, to your point, very crucial stretch coming up. Just to reiterate, BYU on Thursday, Thanksgiving. Saturday, Vanderbilt, which, by the way, would be very cool for you guys to have Evan Hughes and Jake Lyman on both sidelines calling the same game together. So either Vanderbilt on Saturday, which I'm kind of done with seeing Vanderbilt. The Commodores have just gotten after the Hokies the last 2 years. Or Oregon State, and then, Florida here for the ACC SEC Challenge, and then Duke here in Blacksburg. So, interesting couple weeks.
Yeah.
What is coming? You got something else?
Well, yeah, and I was just going to add, Mel Daly is the other big transfer coming in along with Freelon. We haven't really seen much of Swanson because she's been banged up, and she was on a minutes restriction. And Daly has been hit or miss, but these 2 games this week, big opportunity for the Hokies to go down and make a statement. Like, you're coming off a loss. How do you bounce back? How does this team bounce back? They're going to have to play good defense, and they're going to have to rebound as a collective. And I'm just curious to see these games are going to be on ESPN Plus. You're going to have a good opportunity to kind of bounce back against a team that's not a pushover. Like BYU was meh last year. This is a very long, very good rebounding team, one of the best in the Big 12. You've got to go out and be physical.
Yeah.
You've got to, And this is a team that got bumped around a little bit against a bigger James Madison team last week. So they kind of have their work cut out for them, but I don't want to, this comes across very negative. And I just want to say, like, this team still has high hopes. I think they can be pretty good, but they've just got to play a little bit better and be more consistent.
I think the key is like getting to Christmas and make sure you don't have more than 3 losses.
I would agree.
Right.
I would agree.
Yeah.
You can't put yourself in a bad situation before conference play starts.
Right.
Correct.
100%.
Because you don't want to have an uphill climb in ACC play.
Yeah.
And if they could take advantage of a Duke team that is struggling right now next Sunday in Castle Coliseum, that would be a huge win. A huge win. To get Duke at home, struggling, not playing well, they got a couple games to take care of first. The opportunities are there. It's not like they have a gauntlet to start. They've got good teams. But if you could get a couple wins, like if they could go 2-2 or 3-1 even over these next 4 games, I think that would be huge.
They get Duke and Florida State in conference play before Christmas hits,
Correct.
which is interesting. So, all right, Chris, what's coming up on TechSideline.com? I know we're talking basketball, but it's obviously a very busy time of year. So what's coming up on your front?
I have my UVA preview ready tomorrow. Or tomorrow, which will be Wednesday, and we'll have our podcast, preview podcast tomorrow morning. I think Andy's doing a mailbag this week, and I should be doing a Q&A as well. I would like to work in also a recruiting article, but it's a short week, man. We'll see.
We also don't know when recruits might start hitting the fan. Whenever,
probably all on Thanksgiving. Probably when I'm driving home, or you're driving home, or we're all driving home.
Hopefully not. Yeah. Busy week for basketball. 5 games in.
At least they didn't hire Franklin this week.
Yes.
That would have been.
Yeah.
Pete Thamel tweet dropping at Thanksgiving dinner. That would have been something. That would have been something.
Yeah.
Nick,
we got a bunch of audio video content too.
Yeah, Nick, do you want the mic or what you got going on?
Oh man, you made me ask. All right.
Watch your
tomorrow-
Cheez-Its.
Yeah. Sorry, my Cheez-Its are in the way. 2 videos tomorrow, the preview podcast, and then of course we've got buy or sell after that. David recorded a 5 to 10 minute video today, just talking about the Franklin contract details. That'll probably drop tomorrow. Still got to edit it. And yeah, so that's about it. Nothing till next week. Next week's gonna be insane, absolutely insane with signing day.
Talking with Teal posted as well.
Yeah, we got Talking with Teal up. We recorded podcast yesterday recapping the game, UVA preview tomorrow, and Andy's mailbag, your Q&A, plenty of basketball coverage. I'll have a preview up for Battle for Atlantis and a preview up for Paradise Jam on the women's side. But of course, next week's going to be crazy because we've got 2 basketball games in the ACC SEC Challenge on Tuesday and Thursday, and in the middle, signing day.
Fun.
And signing day a couple weeks ago didn't look that busy because Tech only had 8 commits.
Yeah. Seemed like it was going to be a nice, boring day.
Hokies
Not so
are
much, though.
they're stacking the deck, as one might say.
The
for
fat
signing day.
lady's warming up. The fat lady's warming up.
Yeah,
We'll see.
I think they're
We'll
going
see.
to pull a lot of those Penn State guys is
Yeah.
what it seems like.
We'll see.
What you got going on for Thanksgiving, Chris?
I'm going back to Danville.
Nice. What about you, Mr. Cunningham?
First time.
Yorktown?
Yeah, first time since 757. First time since 2020. I will be doing Thanksgiving with my family.
All right,
So,
all right.
last year, my Thanksgiving dinner was a Wawa hoagie.
Yep.
It was very good. This year might be a little bit better.
All right. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving.
Appreciate you hopping
buddy.
on. We'll do these very, very, very soon
Yeah.
and continue to do them as basketball season wanes on. So
Glad we got something positive to talk about.
I know it is a total flip of the script compared to last year. So much fun. For David Cunningham, Chris Coleman, Nick Brown, I'm Carter Hill saying so long from Blacksburg. Enjoy your Thanksgiving week. Enjoy the Hokies and the Cavaliers this weekend in Charlottesville. We'll talk to you very soon.